Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Not Your Normal Murder. This is Mary.
This is Deirdre.
Welcome back. I'm still visiting Deirdre. We're having some fun visiting my sister and my little niece. Today we went for a walk and it was interesting. There is this really creepy guy.
Do you ever get that just uneasy feeling about somebody? So we go to this walking path near us that you have to drive to from my house. And we had my two dogs with me and my baby. And we get out and this creepy guy and his little tiny Shih Tzu or something comes over and the dog is off a leash. And one of my dogs is really easygoing and the other one is temperamental kind of. And there's clear signs around the park that says keep your dogs on a leash 6 feet or less. And this guy's dog is in my dog's face. And he goes, oh, she's not aggressive. Well, what if my dogs are aggressive?
Yeah, because if that happened to my dog would bite your face off. You cannot get in my dog's face.
And I said to him, your dog needs to be on a leash. He's circling my car, and his dog is still on my dog's face while we're trying to get the baby into her stroller, and it was just super creepy, and I'm trying to hide, I'm trying to get stuff out of my backseat, but I'm trying to hide the door so he can't see what's in my backseat. And then we started walking, and he's still hanging around my car.
Yeah, he was just hanging out by the car.
So we kind of walk for a little bit where we could still see the car to see if he's going to give up and walk away because we're not really sure what he's doing. And then we just gave up and left.
Yeah, we just both had a really bad feeling. I was thinking, we need to listen to our guts. This is one of those things where we need to listen to our guts. And, sometimes you don't want to make that other person feel bad. You don't want them to think that you're leaving because they're weird. But
who gives a crap? Because he was weird, and before I had a kid, I was so passive. I never wanted to insult anybody. I never wanted to confront anybody, even somebody I'll never see again.
Yeah, for sure.
And now it's especially if my baby is anywhere near me or my dogs or anything, it's no, I'm sorry. No, I'm not going to step down from confrontation over me being afraid of looking weird or something.
Or hurting somebody's feelings.
Yeah.
No, I think it was good that we just listened to our guts and we just went to another park and we had a lovely afternoon.
Over the past month or two, I've been thinking of ways to better myself, and I've been reading some personal development books. Anyway, the most recent one was the author touched on basically who gives a shit. I know so many of us, I know I struggle with this, I know you struggle with this, of worrying what other people might think about you over anything. What if you are acting funny and the person behind you in line at the grocery store thinks you're weird? Who gives a shit? All the time I'll think about something embarrassing I did 10 years ago and then I hate myself.
Yeah.
Who cares? No, they're not thinking about whatever you did to embarrass yourself. Nobody else is thinking about it. I'm not thinking about it. It's just basically we shouldn't worry what other people think about us so much. And I've really, really, really been trying. When I catch myself being oh my gosh, what is this person gonna think? Or, not commenting something, not standing up for myself, not confronting somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Who cares?
They probably won't think about it for more than 5 minutes.
And what my needs are, or my wants are even selfishly, is more important than me worrying if I look weird in front of this person.
If you look a certain way or not. Yeah.
So anyway, that's my message, is let's not worry what other people think about us so much. And if you want to do something, you want to say something, obviously not verbal abuse,
right.
But
you don't have to be mean.
Yes. But if you need to confront somebody, do it.
We're going to get off our soapbox and get on our true crime box.
There you go. We're just stepping over a box.
We're talking about the Monica Burgos case today, and this was actually a suggestion from Casey. She suggested it to Internet Sleuths. Casey, I hope that you're happy with us covering it here, and thank you so much for the suggestion. I hadn't heard of this case before, and it is the craziest case ever, and it's on somebody that's actually like somewhat high profile, at least in the 2000s. So I'm kind of surprised I hadn't heard about it, but it definitely has some twists. It is sort of a whodunit, so I'm definitely interested in what you guys think at the end, who you guys think did it. So make sure you send us those shout outs, leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts, and here's the story. Bruce Beresford-Redman was born on April 20th, 1971 in America. Monica Burgos was born in Brazil on April 18th, 1969. The two were married in 1999 and had 2 children together. By 2010, Bruce's career was going very well. He was a producer of the TV show Survivor, which, if you were around in the 2000s, was sort of a big deal.
Or if you know me, then you'll know that that's actually probably one of my favorite shows of all time.
Is it still going?
Yeah.
Oh, dang.
Oh my gosh, yes. I'm obsessed with Survivor. I never miss it every single Wednesday. And I've seen every season, and sometimes when I'm like in between shows and have nothing to watch, then I rewatch seasons.
Is it still only $1 million?
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy with the 20 years with inflation.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying $1 million is anything to sneeze at. I'm just saying 20 years with inflation.
Yeah. No, I think so too. People talk about that all the time.
I guess it's just more of a notoriety thing than anything else. So he was the producer of Survivor and also Pimp My Ride.
Well, that's a huge swing.
Well, I'm just saying, those were big shows
Yeah, no.
for the 2000s. Super popular. And Monica, she also was a very successful businesswoman. She owned a popular eatery, a hot spot in the Palms. Imagine just the rent alone. You have to be doing really well. But unfortunately, while things were going well for the couple's careers, things were not going well in their personal lives. I read that possibly Monica may have had an affair. I couldn't really find that 100% confirmed, but it is confirmed that Bruce was having an affair. But in April 2010, the couple decided to go on vacation to Cancun with their 2 young children, shortly before Monica's 42nd birthday. They stayed at a resort called Moon Palace Hotel. And this was a really beautiful resort. The whole thing was for the whole family, places for kids. There was a golf course for dad, a spa for mom, arcade for kids. And it wasn't too far from other tourist activities in Cancun. It seemed like it was going to be a really fun family trip, plus a good birthday for Monica. And most importantly, it was supposed to be a chance for Monica and Bruce to reconnect and work on their marriage.
They'd been married for a while at this point, though, right? Like 20 years?
1999 to 2010.
Oh, so 11 years. Okay.
Yeah. On April 8th, 2010, on what would have been her 42nd birthday, Monica was found dead in a sewer on the resort's property after having been reported missing by her husband, Bruce. She had been strangled, and there were scratches on her body indicating a struggle, and it appeared that she had been hit in the head, although it wasn't clear if this hit to the head happened before or after her death. Bruce was taken into custody for questioning, and immediately the story was all over the news. Monica's sister Carla confirmed for news outlets that Monica had found out about Bruce's infidelity just before the trip. Mexican officials confirmed that Bruce had scratches on his neck and he was considered the prime suspect. 2 days before Monica's body was found, Bruce had actually reported her missing. He claimed that she had left to go shopping and had never returned. And her sister said that this is absolutely ridiculous, that she wouldn't just leave all day with her and leave her kids behind. And she hadn't brought her cell phone with. And they said that she absolutely would not leave all day without her cell phone to check on her kids. So right from the start, her sisters were saying, this doesn't sound right. They were listening to their gut.
In 2010, I don't think I left anywhere without my cell phone glued to my hand either.
No.
And I'm still that way. So.
No, absolutely not. And especially when you have 2, and the kids were pretty young. Like, they were young. But Bruce said that he wasn't too worried since they were working things through and he thought that she just needed some time. She didn't come home that night. But when the next morning he woke up and she still wasn't back, he decided to report her missing.
Red flag, red flag, red flag.
Yeah. If she had never not come home before to 2 young kids, where is she? I mean, they're in Cancun. Well, she's not going and sleeping on her sister's couch.
The kids thing isn't even what is the big, like, I mean, that's a red flag too, but you're on vacation, like what you just said. Like, who's gonna not come back to the hotel room? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, where are you going?
The fact that he wasn't even concerned at all. If my husband and I had an argument and we were on vacation and he didn't, it would take me maybe a few hours before I started freaking out and calling the police, probably. You're, like, in a foreign country.
Yeah, and she's all alone.
Yeah.
I mean, Cancun is a very nice place, but there are places of Cancun that are not nice.
Oh, my gosh. That's not normal.
So he eventually did report her missing, and then a couple days later, Monica's body was found. After her body was found, Bruce obviously became the prime suspect. And while he was not yet formally charged, he was told to not leave Mexico until they said he could, because he's their prime suspect. I mean, that's pretty standard investigation. So while Bruce was ordered to stay in Mexico indefinitely, the 2 children he shared with his wife actually went to stay with his parents in California, who had been awarded temporary custody of the children while this whole thing was getting figured out in Mexico.
Wow, that's fast.
As the investigation continued, it wasn't looking good for Bruce. Bruce had claimed that Monica had left to go shopping and never came back. However, witnesses recalled seeing her come back to the hotel. Shortly after she was seen returning to the hotel, neighbors complained to the front desk that they could hear fighting coming from the Beresford-Redman room. When the concierge came to check on the family, Bruce told the concierge that he and his wife were fighting, although he would later deny that he had ever said this to the concierge.
So he's like...
Well, I mean, what interest does the concierge have in...
Yeah.
Why would the concierge lie? What interest does he have in lying?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About 6 a.m. the next morning, shortly before Monica was reported missing, neighbors would report that they heard a woman screaming and fighting coming from that room again.
What? Why aren't these neighbors calling the police?
I mean, maybe they're all tourists and they don't know the number for 911 in Mexico. I don't know the number for 911 in Mexico.
Okay, well, I would call the front desk and tell them to call the police.
Yeah. The concierge should have called the police.
I've had many a time where I've lived in an apartment in a so nice area. The first time I hear any sort of domestic disturbance in another apartment, I call the police. You never know what's going on in there.
No, you really don't. So soon some emails would be leaked that Bruce had allegedly sent to his mistress, who was a casting director that he worked with.
On Survivor?
I don't know which show. I think he was actually working on another project that never flourished because of this whole thing.
Yeah.
But when Monica found out about this affair, 3 months before the Cancun trip, according to the emails, she apparently actually completely left him. She took the kids and wouldn't let him see them. And she also took all their money. So it was really nasty separation. So, of course, these emails talking about this messy breakup, they blew up all over the media, with every media outlet getting any type of expert on their show, from forensic experts to relationship experts, and they all had these experts come on their shows to make comments about what they thought the emails indicated. I mean, you know how these shows are, these news shows.
Oh my gosh, was this like Nancy Grace type shows, or was it like The View?
Nancy Grace type of shows. I don't think it was actually Nancy Grace, because she's
But it was more like a news type
show. It was those types of shows, like Fox News shows.
So
yes. They're all sitting around with forensic experts,
love experts talking about like letters.
Yeah, wow. Comparing the receipts.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So I think it's pretty obvious that the emails show there was a lot of tension at least 3 months before the trip. I think that's really all we can get from the emails. I don't think we need to sit here and analyze it all night.
Oh my gosh.
But also, I think a lot can change in 3 months. So I don't think that what the email said 3 months before this vacation can indicate what kind of mindset Monica and Bruce were in on the vacation, you know?
Yeah.
A lot can change. In May, a report came out that the family's nanny had claimed that Bruce had tried to take out a life insurance policy on Monica prior to the trip. And it would actually be later confirmed that Bruce had taken out 2 policies on Monica just before the trip, one for $50,000 and another for $500,000.
Why would the nanny be privy to that information?
I think Monica was complaining to her about it because she thought thought it was weird that Bruce wanted to do it. At least that's what the nanny said.
Red flag, red flag.
Yeah, but I don't know what the nanny's motive is. Maybe the nanny was trying to get an interview. Maybe she was trying to get her face on TV.
Yeah.
I don't know. All that we do know for sure is that life insurance policies were taken out for what I would consider a large sum of money. I don't know if he thinks $500,000 is a lot of money because he was a big shot producer. I think $500,000 is a lot of money.
Well, yeah, but the $50,000 one is odd to me.
Yeah, I don't know. But another thing about the life insurance policies that supporters of Bruce like to bring up is that he wasn't the beneficiary of it, the children were. But on the other hand, if he is the guardian of the beneficiary, he's in charge of the money. I can see that in either party's camp.
Well, yeah, but it would also be more for him to not put himself as the beneficiary because that would be more obvious.
Yeah. I can see either way you argue this, you can twist it however you want it to.
Yeah.
All that we know for sure is that he took out these life insurance policies.
Yeah.
As you recall, Mexico had not yet formally charged Bruce, but they had requested that he stay in the country. And in fact, they had actually revoked his passport to ensure that he could not flee. But on May 22nd, they reported that after attempting to bring Bruce in for more questioning, he could not be located. The next day, Bruce's lawyer confirmed that Bruce had made his way back to the U.S., stating that it was to be with his children and to attend to personal matters. Wouldn't it be more important to you to be trying to find your wife's killer? Wouldn't you want to be with the police, helping them any way that you could?
I'm just more perplexed about how he got over the border without a passport.
Well, Bruce had apparently hitchhiked to the border, and at the border, all you need is an ID. It doesn't have to be a passport. And I guess he hadn't been flagged. And so all he had to do was show his driver's license, and he was able to cross the border. And then he still avoided planes, though, even though he was in America, and he took a train from the border of Mexico to Los Angeles. But anyway, that's according to the reports. And that's what he said.
Yeah.
So he's trying to make himself look in the best light possible, obviously. That's how he said he got back home to America.
But I mean, if he's avoiding planes and taking trains and stuff, he knows that he's in the wrong. Like, he knows that he shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah. And as you can imagine, this only added fuel to the media storm that was this story. I mean, this just blew up. Mm-hmm. While in LA, Bruce refused to comment to the media about the case, but his old neighbor talked to the media, saying she thought Bruce was a nice, mild-mannered person who would never be capable of doing such a thing. I feel like every freaking neighbor says that.
Well, also, I feel like, how are you going to know what people are capable of?
Yeah.
People didn't think Ted Bundy was capable of what he did. They thought he was really nice and great.
No, just because you wave to this person in the morning when you guys are picking up your newspapers doesn't mean you know what he's capable of in his darkest moment. Mm-hmm. And while Bruce continued to not comment to the media, his lawyer had no problem giving their theory of what happened. Apparently, Monica was not the first tourist to die at that resort. In fact, 2 other people had died and an attempted rape had occurred. In 2009, a 77-year-old woman was vacationing with her family at the same resort. She was supposed to only be gone for a minute to go retrieve her sun hat from her room as they were sitting by the pool, but she never returned. She was found later having been beaten to death.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And that's all I know about that case. I couldn't find anything else. I don't know if they ever charged somebody with that. That's really sad. But
That's so scary to me because you never think when you're on vacation and you're staying at a hotel, and I'm assuming it was light out if she's going back to the room to get her sun hat. I mean, I never think about that when I'm walking around a hotel.
No, not at all.
And now I am going to be thinking about that. That is so scary.
That's really scary. And that's so sad.
She's 79 years old? Like, who would have that kind of motive? Like, oh my gosh.
I don't know. I don't have any more details. I don't know if maybe jewelry was stolen or a purse or something. I don't know. But
I feel like you could take a 79-year-old lady's purse without beating her to death.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of the things that Bruce's lawyer brought up. In 2007, another tourist was found dead after having apparently fallen from his balcony. And that's all I know about that. I don't know if they ruled it a suicide or a homicide or suspicious. That's all I know, is that another person died at that resort. And then a third tourist claimed that a hotel employee had attempted to rape her during her visit to the resort. So there is this sort of lurid history to this resort. And this is what the lawyer is bringing up to the media as kind of their statement about, I mean, that's just their statement in general. They're just kind of bringing up all these other things that have happened there.
They're saying, what, this is a dangerous resort and people die here?
Basically, yeah. So Bruce's defense felt that there was a clear pattern of violence at the resort, but prosecutors in Cancun claimed that this was a smear campaign against the hotel and that none of those cases were related to each other or to Monica.
Yeah, none of them sound related.
No, none of them sound related. A 77-year-old compared to a 42-year-old, those don't have anything in common. Mm-hmm. So meanwhile, Bruce's parents had temporary custody of those two children. Monica's sister, Carla, had also been attempting to get custody of the children. Now that Bruce was back in the U.S., he also filed to resume full custody of his children. So this whole thing is getting really messy.
Yeah.
But it was about to get a whole lot messier. By the end of May, a judge in Cancun had issued an arrest warrant for Bruce, meaning he would be extradited back to Mexico. Following news of the warrant, Bruce made his first public statement. The statement reads as follows, quote, "Monica was the axis around which our whole family revolved, from her sisters and parents to my parents, and of course to our children and me. She was everything to us. I am devastated at her loss. I am incensed at the suggestion that I could have had anything to do with her death. I am innocent. My children have had one parent taken from them by a senseless act of violence. I implore the Mexican authorities not to take the remaining parent by a miscarriage of justice, and to do what is right, not just what is expedient." I think it's interesting that he's saying that him being extradited for a trial is a miscarriage of justice. Because the whole point of a trial is to get justice. If he's innocent, justice is for him to be found innocent and to get to go back to his own life. I mean, yeah, it's an inconvenience. It's not a miscarriage. So it's kind of silly because obviously Bruce was in America because he said he was in America. And he was seen in America visiting his kids and so on. But before the Mexican government could request an extradition, they had to prove that he wasn't in Mexico. So they completed a search of the last known places of Bruce. And when they couldn't find him, they reported to the U.S. he's not here.
So they searched his hotel room.
Yeah, they searched his hotel room and they were like, nope, still not here. So after they were able to say that he definitely wasn't in Mexico, they were able to request the extradition from America. The Mexican government wasted no time in getting this process started. But back in the States, Bruce was battling with Monica's family for custody over Monica's estate. In court, the sisters screamed at Bruce, saying, "How could you do that to my sister?" And also telling him he was going to get his justice.
I find it bizarre that he's worrying about losing his children and he's worrying about getting extradited to Mexico, and what he's spending his time on is fighting over her estate.
Mm-hmm. Kind of shows you.
Yeah, it's a thinker right there.
By June, Mexico had made the official request for extradition, meaning the U.S. government would have a hearing to determine if they would honor the request. Bruce was emailing all his friends and family who still supported him, asking them to write letters attesting to his character so that he could show it to the court at his hearing. His defense said Bruce would be fighting the extradition and also called into question the veracity of the Mexican investigation, claiming that after the Mexican government had confiscated Bruce's phone as part of their investigation, they had racked up nearly $4,000 American dollars in charges using the phone. November proved to be a bad month for Bruce. He lost the fight for custody of his kids when his parents were made their permanent guardians. And not long after he was arrested by the FBI and U.S. Marshals acting on behalf of the Mexican arrest warrant. The extradition treaty was made public, and this was the first time the public got a really good idea of what the evidence was against Bruce, not just all these rumors that were circulating in the media. The extradition treaty listed the following evidence. 6 weeks before her death, Monica learned about the affair between Bruce and his colleague. There appeared to have been some sort of separation, even if short, which was followed by them working things out, and then they went on this trip. On or around the time of the trip, Monica learned Bruce had not broken off that affair. The trip was Bruce's idea, which the prosecution felt might show intent. Around 6 a.m. on April 5th, the day Monica went missing, neighbors below the couple's room heard a woman screaming for help. Hotel staff came to the room and Bruce told them that he was fighting with his wife. However, he would later deny that he had made this statement and would later claim that the noises that had been heard were his kids roughhousing.
And screaming for help?
Yes, at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Bruce did not allow hotel staff into the hotel room for the whole rest of the day. He put a do not disturb on the door. I forget what the defense said. I think the defense said he didn't even realize it was there or something like that.
Personally, if I was the manager of the hotel or something, I would want to go and check out the room after
you heard
hearing
screaming
of somebody screaming for help. Yeah.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
The following day, April 6th, the key card was used to gain access to the hotel room 9 times between midnight and 7 a.m. He left the hotel room with the 2 little kids in there sleeping 9 times in the middle of the night.
Well, he came and left 9 times.
No, because you only use a key card to get back in the room.
Oh, you're right. You don't need it to leave. Duh. So he left 9 times.
Yes. And he claimed that he was going and looking for her. But you left your kids alone 9 times?
You're concerned enough to leave the room 9 times to look for her, but you're not concerned enough to call the cops yet.
And if it's so dangerous that she's missing, it's not dangerous enough to leave your children unattended?
Wow. That doesn't make any sense to me.
He then reported Monica missing at 7 a.m. And the last time that key card was used was around 7 a.m. Her body was found the next day, and when interviewed by police, Bruce had multiple scratches all over his body. It was also said in the extradition treaty that traces of blood were found throughout the hotel room. Everything I'd said there is what was in the extradition treaty of their evidence of why they wanted to bring him to trial.
Okay.
But just because he was arrested by the U.S. government does not mean that he's then immediately handed over to Mexico, which I didn't know. I thought you would be. But he was actually kept in U.S. custody and was arraigned by a U.S. judge, and he was given a bail hearing just like any other person that's arrested. The judge felt that Bruce was a flight risk because of his previous flight. And denied him bail.
I don't know why they would be worried about that again.
So he had to sit in U.S. jail while they continued to work on this extradition to Mexico. Bruce and his defense continued to fight the extradition request, and they filled a 24-page request, including statements from the therapist of his 6-year-old daughter. And this therapist claimed that the daughter claimed that she had never seen her father hit her mother. So this was part of his evidence that he couldn't have killed her, because his 6-year-old therapist said that the 6-year-old never saw them fight.
Oh my gosh.
Well, what really bothered me was that they also requested to allow the 6-year-old to be a witness for her father and testify on his behalf, which I just think is so traumatizing for a 6-year-old.
Especially somebody who just lost their mom.
Yeah. And to get put on stand and be asked, did you ever see your daddy hit your mommy? I mean, can you think of something more traumatic to have to sit through?
Why would they think that a scared little 6-year-old would tell the absolute truth?
No, 6-year-olds don't tell the truth about anything.
What if she's already lost her mom and now she's not dumb? She's going to have a pretty good idea that if I say that he's been hitting her, then he's going to be gone too. Why would she say that he's, you know what I mean?
Right. And the judge thought exactly what we thought. So the judge denied the request to allow the 6-year-old to testify on her father's behalf.
Okay, good.
On July 12, 2011, Bruce lost his fight to remain in the U.S. and the extradition was approved. The judge stated that he did not find Bruce's story credible. And the judge also didn't feel that a 6-year-old saying she never saw a fight could disprove what the neighbor and hotel staff heard. The defense appealed, but in December, another court upheld the original finding, stating that they felt evidence pointed towards Bruce being guilty. Following this finding, the defense issued a statement that they would not appeal the appeal, and that they were eager to have a fair trial and clear Bruce's name. But we all know the wheels of justice move slowly, so it wasn't until February 2012 that Bruce was actually extradited to Mexico. But still, a Mexican judge then had to determine if there was enough evidence to move forward with a trial. The defense hoped that at this point they could get the charges dismissed, and they called witnesses who claimed to have seen Monica alive after the time the prosecution claimed she was already dead. But despite this, the trial was ordered and Bruce pled not guilty. From prison, Bruce began giving media interviews protesting his innocence and claiming the real guilty person or persons were still out there. The trial did not begin until 2015, and what I learned is that trials in Mexico are different than the U.S. A judge presides, so it's basically a bench trial, but what happens is basically both sides give a presentation to the judge based on the evidence, and then the judge makes a decision based on the presentations. The prosecution laid out the same case as we already heard, but there was no direct evidence linking Bruce to Monica's murder. Remember I said in the extradition treaty that they had found blood in the room? Well, by now the DNA had come back and the blood was not Monica's. So she had been strangled and scratched. Her head had been hit, but however she was killed, if she died in that room, she did not bleed in that room. By the time the trial began, much of the forensic evidence taken had molded or degraded due to not being stored properly. It was also revealed that Monica's fingernails had not been checked for foreign DNA because her body was so decomposed by the time they found it. So even though they had said that Bruce had scratches on him, they weren't able to ever prove if Monica had caused those scratches.
Right. Her body decomposed that much in 3 days?
It's Cancun. It's hot. She was in a sewer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it decomposed, and she was probably covered in so much other foreign DNA.
Yeah.
Bruce was found guilty of murdering his wife. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison minus time served, which kind of blows my mind that you can get 12 years for murder.
That blows my mind because the Mexican government was so aggressive about getting him convicted.
Yeah.
Like, they went really far out of their way to get a conviction on this, to get him convicted on this, get him extradited and everything. And then he gets 12 years?
I don't know if maybe that's standard for murder in Mexico. I don't know.
Wow.
The defense appealed the verdict and sentence, but in 2018, a Mexican court upheld the verdict and sentence. In July of this year, 2019, Bruce was released from prison after serving 7.5 years. He's currently living in California.
So he served all that time in a Mexican prison?
Yeah. Yeah, and in fact, I think it was CBS. They did a documentary about his life in prison. You go to YouTube, you can actually watch the entire thing where he goes through prison and he shows you how hard his life is in prison and how you always have to watch your back and you can't ever be friends with anybody. And he just kind of really plays up about how hard it is in there because he's still attesting his innocence.
Yeah, he's never admitted to anything.
No. So I'm really interested in what you guys think. Do you think that there was enough evidence that he did it? I mean, really, when you look at it, it is circumstantial. It is. It's circumstantial.
Yeah.
There was nothing direct linking him to it. But it is so convincing, the circumstances.
I mean, people have been convicted on less.
Oh, for sure.
Even in the United States. A lot less.
So I'm really interested in what you guys think. Do you think that Bruce did it? Do you think that there's anything to the theory about the 2 other people that died there? Do you even have a third theory of something else that could have happened? We're interested. Check us out on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can email us at notyournormalmurder@gmail.com. Let us know your thoughts on this case. And as always, if you have any further suggestions for future cases, make sure to let us know. Another shout out and thanks to Casey for this suggestion. This was a really interesting one. This one was really crazy. I can't believe I had never heard of this one.
I'm shocked too, just because I love Survivor so much. I can't believe I've never.
You're going to think of this case every single time you watch Survivor.
Every time I watch it.